Hi, this is Michelle Markey. These videos are made for any of the students who have taken my classes as a means of refreshing your memory as to how to use and color your mini quilt. In this particular example, it's the Zentangle Pumpkin. If you remember correctly, this is quite vivid, has lots of different colors, but we're going to start focusing on the leaves and the stem up here first to refresh our memory on how to use the Inktense pencil on dry cloth and then use the fabric medium to intensify, shade, and blend our two colors together. If you've noticed already, I've started doing some of the stems. I've actually come down here and done some of the leaf, and I'm going to come over here now and start coloring in the green area next to the area of the yellow that kind of acts as a highlighter. So all I'm going to do is come in and start coloring very lightly. I'm not pressing hard, I'm just shading it, the same as if you were using it on paper, just to get that little bit of color. I do come all the way over to the stitch line and actually kind of color slightly on top of the stitch line so that some of those blank areas actually do get some color that will later kind of push into the fabric with the fabric medium. So I'm just going to try to finish this up. Try as you're coloring with your pencil not to make these streak marks. I've done a little bit here, but I'll show you how we can get rid of that when we do pour our fabric medium. And I'm going to kind of just lightly go over the yellow with my green so that the green kind of sits on top of my yellow. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to come up here and put a bit more green into the stem up this direction and come down. Again, I'm not doing this very heavy, just very lightly, making sure everything is covered, and get this last part of the stem over here. Okay, at this point in time, I'm going to bring in my fabric medium, and I'm going to pour just a tiny bit here in this cup. See, maybe a dime's worth. And then I'm going to bring my paintbrush, and I'm going to just dip it slightly into the fabric medium. You'll notice, I'm going to try to bring this up to the camera eye, I've got just about a half a bit of the brush wet with the fabric medium. And starting in the middle, I'm going to start brushing this fabric medium over. Now let's see if I can zoom in here just a bit. That way it'll give you a better idea. And I'm going to lighten up the area so that you can see this, to make sure that everyone can see what I'm doing. Again, dipping it in the fabric medium and coming over and getting my leaf color where I've drawn wet with the fabric medium. Now right here where the yellow and the green mix together, I'm just going to kind of rub my brush back and forth to really get a good blend between the green and the yellow. You don't want a really stark line between the two. And it's okay as you move the green around, or as you color the green with the fabric medium and intensify that color, that if you want to move that green up into the yellow, I think it adds a kind of a nice blended effect to it. It doesn't leave a really stark line between the yellow and the green. Again, I'm just lightly painting the fabric medium over to get that really nice blended effect. I'm just going to kind of rub my brush all over everything and get it really nice and covered. Now with the green, because I really think this leaf is maybe just a bit too light, where I've already put the fabric medium, I'm just going to come back in, and if you'll notice now when I color with the Inktense pencil, that color really steps out, becomes very, very, very vivid on the wet fabric. And this is actually called a wet on wet technique, where the fabric medium is already dampened the fabric, and which brings out the color immediately. And then I'm going to dip my brush in the fabric medium and come back over where I just drew and blend that deeper green color back towards the yellow. Maybe not actually getting it into the yellow, but just kind of moving it into the leaf so that it gives it a really nice kind of deep effect, kind of an outline edge effect along. And make sure when you use your brush that you really get inside the fabric. In this particular mini quilt, the stitch lines were repeated over and over again to kind of emphasize the shape of the leaf. And so what you're really going to want to do is, if you see an area that doesn't look like it has a lot of color in it, come back in this particular instance, with your green, and after you've outlined it with a fabric medium, and come back in with a pencil and go over the stitch line so that you really get your color deep in that, and then back again with your brush to blend it in. Okay? Likewise, you can move on to the stem. Same process. You're just going to dip your brush into the fabric medium and start getting the whole colored area damp. Now, not sopping wet. Some of these colors, we're not using paints in this particular video, but we are using the colored pencils. And sometimes when you use fabric medium with either inks or paints, you can actually cause the color to bleed a bit. But in this particular instance with these pencils, that's really not too bad of an issue. Okay, I'm going to paint all the way up and down this stem. Again, I think the green's just a little bit too light, particularly down here at the base. So I'm really going to come in here and darken that whole area up with my green. Because if we all seen pumpkins, we know how that they're at the base, they're kind of deep green, and then just slightly lighter as I go up the stem line. Come back in with my fabric medium and go over what I just colored to get that really nice blended look. And again, push with your fabric medium, push the color as close to the edge. Let's see if I can really show you this better if I bring my brush out here. Really push that brush right up to the edge and really onto the stitch line so that all the color gets on and into the white fabric that's kind of behind the stitching. All right, well, that will conclude the lesson on the stem. Be sure to check for the other videos when we'll start talking about how to color in the pumpkin, the outside, let's see if I can zoom out here a bit, the outside area, the frame, and then how we're going to do the back one. Again, this with the stems and the leaves, and this would be considered lesson 1 of a Zentangle pumpkin. Thanks for watching.